Welcome back to another episode of Life in the Stands podcast. We have Jake, Zach, and Beans on the podcast today. We're excited to talk about Brandon Aiyuk and all of the drama that's going on. We have a Steelers fan, we have a Niners fan on the podcast. So one of us has had a bad week, and one of us has had a anxious week. So we're excited to jump in all of that. It also brought up a discussion. We were talking about this off camera, brought up a discussion about the top 10 wide receivers in the league right now and where some of those guys are stacked up pay wise. So we're excited to kind of jump into all of that. We are going to give Beans a first crack at maybe listing his top 10, talking about the drama in general. But first, want to thank everyone for watching and listening. Remember to like and subscribe on whatever platform you are on. And with that, Beans, let's go ahead and just kind of hear your thoughts on everything surrounding Aiyuk, receivers. Let's hear it.
I just want it to be over, dog. Like you said, it's been a shitty, sad, drama-filled, Twitter refreshing, uh, filled week. I guess. I mean, this stuff broke on Monday that there was a trade pretty much done, but we all know that's not the case anymore. So yeah, I mean, like Big Booty said, we had started having a conversation about Ayuk and compensation and all that kind of thing. And Bender gave us his trash ass list of top 10 receivers that I thought was horrendous. And I thought when he gave me that list, I respected him a little bit less. So now I'm going to give you guys my top 10 list. Let me know how you guys, feel about it and stuff like that. But basically, what I did is I looked at who was top 10 in the league for catches. I averaged that out over the 10 people, and that ended up at 112 and a half catches of the top 10 receivers in the league per catch wise. So, and then I looked at that. I cross referenced that with who was the first of those top 10 receivers in catches in yards per catch. Because I think that those are going to be my two biggest numbers when we're talking about my argument for Ayuk being top 10 is how well he did with the ball when he caught it, all 75 times. He had 17.9 yards per catch. Um, so I took those top 10 receivers and catches, took his numbers, and it ended up being 112 catches for 2,004 yards and 10 touchdowns. Now, Ayuk's not going to get 2,000 yards in a season. I'll never say that. Obviously, with more volume becomes less, you know, less yards per catch. Basically, look at CD Lamb. I mean, kind of like what I was saying with those two lists is Tyreek Hill is second in the league last year in catches at 119. I think he was tied with Amon-Ra St. Brown if I'm remembering correctly. He was the 19th receiver in yards per catch at 15.1. So I'm like Ayuk, if he got the targets of a top 10 or a top, 10 receiver like everybody else does, I think that the production that he would have would be comparable to some of the top two, top three, top four names in the league. He just plays on a team with four guys who, deserve 100 targets each. Um, so I kind of, took those numbers, figured it out, thought that, 112 for 2004 and 10 is a little ridiculous. Um, but what I did is I then went through every division, picked every single wide receiver one on each of the teams. So for example, for the NFC North, I ranked it Jefferson number one, St. Brown number two, DJ Moore number three, and then Jaden Reed number four. Each of their teams' respective number one receiver ranked in order per how I thought they would be. They were, and then I basically took what I thought Ayuk could do with an extrapolated, stat line from the receptions, and I came out with Justin Jefferson, St. Brown in the NFC North. Those two guys are in my top 10. In the NFC East, I have CD Lamb and AJ Brown. That makes four. This is not in any order, by the way. So I know I started with Justin Jefferson. He's obviously my number one, but this everybody else is just kind of can be moved up and down. The South, I have Evans. Um, is the only one from the South I would take over Ayuk, or I would trade one for one. I have nobody in the West for the NFC. Ayuk's obviously in the West, so I put him in my top 10. Um, Jamar Chase in the AFC North. I don't have anybody else that I would think is caliber of top 10. for those guys. In the AFC East, I got Wilson, or I got Hill first, and then Wilson. Garrett Wilson. I think he's a monster. Um, Not a single person from the AFC South, so I excluded names like um, Stephon Diggs, Michael Pittman, guys like that. And then for the AFC West, I have Devontae Adams as my 10th receiver. Now, like I said, I don't think he's top, 3 or 4, but I think he's closer to that 10 mark. But um, I think he should be getting paid, very, in line with those guys. I think that he should be, um, getting the money based on the production that he should, could get if he was a guy that was getting, the targets that he's, these other guys are getting. 130 for CD, 120 for Tyreek, even 100, even 100 yards or 100 catches, he'd have damn near 1,700 yards. So I think it's silly that the Niners haven't paid him yet. I think they should have paid him in May. If they were going to trade him, they should have done it before the draft. And if they trade him, I think that's just a failure on the 49ers part, no matter what they get back from him, personally.
Quick thoughts, and then I'll let Zach go. You must have changed your mind on the A.J. Brown thing because you did not like him when we talked about that previously. So that was a big switch up and
I did,
surprised me a lot.
they're
the way that I explained this to Beans off camera was A.J. Brown had all the attention. It was just him and Derrick Henry in Tennessee. He went to a loaded team in the Eagles, and immediately you can't just double him. You got Smith, you got all these other guys around him. Goddard was good at the time before he got hurt this past year. Everything to think about there. Of course, his numbers are going to go up because he's not the main focus of a defense anymore. Now, I think if Aiyuk goes to a team where he's the number one, he's going to be focused in on his stats will not be as crazy as Beans thinks they are. 2, I think he left off Stephon Diggs and Amari Cooper, and that's where I'll leave it to Zach.
Stephon Diggs and Amari Cooper are two good names. There's a lot to talk about and break down here. There's a ton to consider with this, but I guess I'll start with the Niners part of this, and I think Beans is right in saying that it's a little bit of like an organizational failure right now if they do end up trading him. Really, no matter what they get back, because they could have gotten more before the draft, and you know, a couple of the teams like
you want to have to deal with it.
think it was the Browns that have like the second lowest cap space like going into next season, and they were about to trade for him and pay him. So it's like if they really wanted to figure it out, like this could have been done or it should have been traded a long time ago. So like either way, you dragged this out longer than it should be, and like that is a failure on the part of the Niners, I think. That being said, Aiyuk as like a number one receiver or like how competitive he would be there. I like the list that Beans had. It's hard to argue with like the numbers behind that. Y'all know I'm a sucker for numbers, right? Like that's how I operate. So like the argument that Beans laid out, like I think it's a good one. And even if like Beans said, like he's not going to hit 2,000 yards, but if you give Aiyuk 30 more catches, you give him 40 more targets throughout the season, like yeah, like now you're probably looking at like top 5 production. And you have to wonder, like, is the reason he didn't get those targets because of the team he played on? Or is it because he really is a number 2 or a number 3 to those alphas that are there in Christian McCaffrey and Debo and George Kittle? So like that is a balance that you have to kind of like wonder about. But then you think about the teams that are looking to trade for him, and it's like, okay, if he goes to the Patriots, Bender, what you're saying is probably true. Like Jake, like he's going to a team where he's the guy, he's going to get zoned in on, and he's probably going to struggle with that. If he goes to a team like the Steelers and plays in an Arthur Smith scheme that is a Shanahan disciple, and you have George Pickens on the other side, and you have Pat Fryermuth, and you have the backs that are there, and it's in that style of scheme still, well then like maybe yeah, he floats to that number one guy, but you're not going to go double Aiyuk or rotate a whole coverage and leave Pickens one-on-one all game.
So you can't do that all game. Yeah,
right? You can't do that.
You can't
right?
just
so
double
like,
and say he's not going to get catches.
Yeah, so like honestly, that's where.
Why does CD get catches? CD had 140 of them with no
but
other
also
weapons.
You look at the yards per catch
but
and it was a lot less, right? So
yeah, he wasn't top 20.
I have Aiyuk top 15, but I'm just saying I need to see him be a number one on a different team than the 49ers because the Niners are stacked.
So
That's all.
let's
I
So,
can't
but so are
believe
the
that.
Eagles.
let's wrap
But
this
so
up
are
in
the
like the next
Eagles.
minute. Let's wrap this up in the next minute. And like a true Steelers fan, let's just hone in. If Aiyuk goes to the Steelers, would you consider that him as a true number one option? And would you consider him having success there as legitimate enough for you to say, yes, like for sure he's a top 10 receiver? Like, let me lay out a scenario. Like, he goes to the Steelers, it's 1,500 plus yards, 10 plus touchdowns, 100 plus catches on the Steelers, who end up making a playoff run or like winning a playoff game, maybe. Is that
See,
success then? Is he a number one receiver? Top 10?
at that point, but I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced Pickens still wouldn't be the number one guy on that team.
That's fair. Beans?
He wouldn't. I'm sorry. I personally think he wouldn't be the number one, and I also think it's kind of crazy that Aiyuk is we can't judge Aiyuk top 10 because he's on a loaded roster, but AJ Brown's the same thing. Jamar Chase has another top 15 receiver on his team. It's kind of I kind of feel like there's like a standard for one guy, but not the other guy. You know what I mean?
See,
But
And
I'm
then you say,
saying,
oh, if Ayuk's the number one, if he has no other options, he can't get that many catches. No, because the Cowboys manufacture touches for CD, right? The
they
Raiders
do.
manufacture touches for Devonta Adams. It's possible for him to be a number one and still get more catches than 75.
I think he can get more catches. I don't think his yardage will be the same. It'll either be the same or a little bit less because I don't think he's going to get 18 yards per catch in that kind of system then.
I don't think he's going to get 18 yards per catch either, but you can't say that 30 more catches, he's going to have less than 1,350 yards.
Yeah.
No, but my
He's going to, if
point
he gets
being,
100 catches, the floor is 1,610 if he has 100 catches. I would put
okay,
my money on it.
I got 2 points to make because this is what I was trying to explain to you yesterday. AJ Brown had a lot less production on the Titans than he did the Eagles. Once he went to a stacked team, when everybody else was getting looks with him, that's when he started to produce more. Is what I'm trying to tell you. So of course Aiyuk is going to do well on a good team like that. I think he needs to go to a team where they're in a
But then
rebuild.
what about CD?
The
Like
Cowboys don't
that,
have
like your
anybody else.
AJ Brown Titans.
The Cowboys don't have anybody.
Exactly. Neither do the Titans. So how does AJ Brown leaving the number one role to
Because
go in a
CD
stacked
Lamb's better.
offense benefit him? I think they feed
So
him. They
I'll
force
clear
feed him.
this up. I'll clear this up because I think
If Ayuk was force fed catches like CD Lamb,
the
he's top 3
disconnect
in the
here
league easy.
the disconnect here is that like one of you guys is talking about the transition like and where they went, and one of you guys is focused on like where they came from. And both of you are right, and both of you have a valid point. And the thing is, you only are really going to figure it out if Ayuk ends up on a different team. So we'll just have to kind of see
I think he's gonna have a
what
better
happens
season.
there.
I think he's gonna have a better
And
season
before
no
we
matter what team he plays for.
before we jump into the next segment, the last thing I'll say is I think if he goes to the Steelers, it's like a 1A 1B. Like I don't think there's like a true alpha kind of between them because they have slightly different skill sets, but they're both very valuable and they do different things. It's like a 1A 1B kind of situation there. With that, let's jump into the NCAA Player of the Week with Bender, and then we can give him some time to talk about the things that are on his wall behind him.
What do you want, Beans?
I just think that if this Ayuk does go to the Steelers, who the number one receiver is will depend on who the starting quarterback is, or who the quarterback is that gets the majority of the starts. I think if it's a Justin Fields led Steelers team, I think Ayuk is number one. If it's Russell Wilson, I think George Pickens would be the number one. That's just that
The quarterback
prediction.
play is going to have a big to do with what Aiyuk does if he goes to the Steelers.
100%.
That's just the way it is.
100%. I mean,
NCAA Player of the Week.
he gets wide open. That's the thing.
All right. So while I'm already fired up, so typically we do a player of the week. And I'm going to do this sarcastically because I am extremely pissed off. The winner and player of the week, I'm calling them a winner, is the NCAA because they decided to revisit the Michigan conversation. Suspending Harbaugh for a couple of games last season was not enough. They decided to revisit. His suspension till 2028 means nothing. The part that pisses me off is that people are talking about like taking away the championship that we won. That's not exactly how that works, and I'll
They
explain why.
should.
No, because whatever you think like the advantage was that we did that because somebody knew about it, whether it was our assistant or Harbaugh or everybody, you can pull the same thing from film. So why does it matter? Everybody steals each other's signals. Everybody recruits with money or at wrong times. They just don't all get caught. So what I'm pissed off about is that the fact that Michigan
During COVID, though,
yeah. If you hear veterans come out like Reggie Bush and all those guys getting recruited before NIL and didn't get in trouble for it just because they were getting paid on the spot to join their team. If you heard about all that kind of stuff, if you
Reggie Bush didn't get in trouble for it.
no, but I'm just saying those types of guys are coming out and
Well, he is getting his stuff restored too, right?
yeah.
And we have to wrap up the episode.
Yeah, but 20 years later.
But I mean, what I'll say is, in regards to Michigan, I do believe that everyone, just like in the NFL with all the Patriots stuff, everyone does shit to a certain extent, and some people get caught and some don't. And what I believe is Michigan was stupid enough to get caught while winning a national championship. So there's something to be said for being stupid enough to get caught, even though everyone probably doesn't. So I will say, don't be stupid enough to get caught in Michigan. And as far as taking away your title, I haven't seen any of that, but there's been plenty of teams that have gotten titles taken away for random things and plenty of players that get accolades taken away for random things. And you're talking to a Penn State guy that had a lot of messed up stuff happen at Penn State with Sandusky and Paterno and all those things, that they tore down statues and stripped wins and like took away championships and all that kind of stuff. And obviously it's like that's very different, but the NCAA will do it. Like they'll just do whatever they want to do about it. So
yeah, I'm just pissed off that, like you said, pretty much everybody does it and it's us that got singled out. And you can pull the same thing from film. You can steal the same signals from film. If you're not good at game planning, you're not good at game planning. So just say that, Ohio State. Because I bet you any money Ohio State's crying about how they can't beat us now, and then they probably found somebody inside and got that figured out. That's just a random theory I got, but I think it's definitely possible.
go find the Michigan mole, Bender. Go find him.
I'm a Harbaugh guy. I mean, I have nothing against him as a Niners fan. I love that man. But I just think it's funny that the one time he wins a playoff game, it's because he cheated the entire season to do it. So,
And with that, we will wrap up this episode of Life in the Stands. Thank you again, everyone, for watching and listening. Remember to like and subscribe on whatever platform you're on, and we'll see you on the next episode.